Purpose. Why are we here? Why are any of us here? What a fun question we regularly ask. This is the question that we tend to ask ourselves more than anything, and in a personal way, I don't think I could answer that for you as to why you're here. Your personal and individual purpose may be completely self-ascribed and different from the next person. But there does appear to be an overall intention in the universe. There is a constant for purpose. When we look at certain historical, religious, and mythological concepts, and even especially today's modern Eastern and spiritual philosophies constantly tell us that you're here to return to the source, to give up your independence, your ego, and your individuality, and return to the Creator. That doesn't make any sense. Or it teaches us that we're here to love and we're searching for love. If everything is light and everything is already connected, then you are already in love, of love, and from love. Though, in my opinion, the proper designation is joy or happiness. And I will say that there is a distinction there between the ego and identity. Ego's a terrible thing, and ego you do need to shred. You're not as great as you think you are. By understanding that, you'll become greater than you think you are. You do have to understand that you are you. Because you are you, you have identity. And maybe the way we identify things from this perception isn't accurate to what things are in truth, or from a different perspective, or from a higher form. But you can only understand where you're at, and where you are you. And your path might be to learn something different. Maybe you have to learn self-control. Maybe you have to learn love. That path, though, I believe is generally an individual aspect. It gets clouded with the thing we call ego. Ego is a bad thing. But identity is not. And you have an identity, and you shouldn't give your identity up. You should foster it, you should grow it, and you should do it thoughtfully and selffully as opposed to selfishly. That growth comes back to the context of what the purpose of the universe is. Now, am I saying the purpose of the universe is to grow? I think that that's just what the universe is going to do by the processes put in place in general, or operations, I should say. So the operations put in place are going to grow the universe anyway, and at times they're going to contract the universe. The purpose is, in my opinion, very self-evident, and we see it everywhere. We see it in stars, we see it with planets, we see it with life forms most imperatively, and that is to procreate. Procreation is the purpose of the universe. This is very, very evident the moment a sperm enters an egg and there's a light, a flash. This is the initiation of a self-energizing process within the uterus. This is the process by which a new form is going to start to generate, to grow, and then eventually separate from the hosting parent and become its own thing. So why would all other objects in the universe that we see a very similar action happen with not do this? When you see what we're told is a supernova, science is very fun, isn't it? Science will tell us that a supernova is a death of a star, but then a new star forms in that exact same place. At least that's how they taught it when I was in school. Well, that's horse crap. It's the same star. But what it was doing was shedding off to generate. What was it generating? In the electric universe models, in the plasma model to be really accurate in plasmatics, we might see these things as gas planets. These gas planets may very well be fresh stars. And just like you have to be held in the womb of your mother to grow, so may they. If you look at our solar system, the constant is not rocky planets. Rocky planets generally seem to exist around the gas giants. They don't normally seem to exist around the star. Venus is a prime example. Venus is the same size as Earth. It has its radiation levels that hit it deflected by 80%. So 80% of solar radiation that hits the Earth and is soaked into the Earth is actually deflected by Venus, which is sitting closer to the sun because of its gaseous atmosphere. Then we have 4 massive giants beyond us. We have 2 dead rocks sitting near us. These gas giants seem to be the norm around a white like we're around.
Why not consider that these are all gestating stars?
Some of the burgeoning models within plasmatics are starting to teach that it's really smaller stars that are likely to go nova. Don't worry about that. Don't stress about that. At the end of the day, we've seen a lot of far distant observations and very few close-up observations when it comes to novae and explosions. We don't know what will happen to a planet. We have an electromagnetic field. Life on this planet would most likely be protected the same way a child is protected within the mother. And so when we look further out, we can also see a process where quasars come off from galaxies. And when quasars come off from galaxies, it appears that they burgeon into fresh galaxies. They become their own thing. Now, the mainstream model tends to not point to things this way because it is, and a lot of our societies are perpetuated on death and believing things end and we're all gonna die. But doesn't it make sense that when we're told energy is not destroyed but just changes form, that this conscious energy within this physical organic body that is saturating, that is being nurtured, is growing to procreate into something else? When we look at the divisions of stars, when we look at different nebula and operations in space, we see this in our own flesh and bone and our own propagation. And we see that something that Einstein told us is the most powerful force in the universe is encapsulated in the growth of a human from inception, and that is compound interest. Cell division operates in doubles: 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 254, and so on. So this compression of form is quick and it happens fast. The universe shows us regularly procreation. We should remember we're in a perception around a star based on how fast that star is, how fast the sun is, how fast it spins, how fast it's spinning us around it, how fast the Earth itself spins. A lot of that throws radiation, neutrons, and atoms, and we'll call it radiant energy. Okay, radiation is thrown all over the place, and really life here burns off quick. It is theorized that life here may actually extend longer if the planet were further away and rotated slower. We wouldn't necessarily decay as fast. But what we're perceiving as decay could very well be very fast evolution. I sometimes wonder if the Earth is not a massive soul generator, in a way, perpetuating and creating life and sending it out through the universe faster than many other objects. Sure is a lot of life on the planet, and don't worry yourself with the things going away at this time. When we've seen that what we're told, 98% of the species that have ever lived on the planet are extinct. So when we're told there's mass extinction going on, yeah, there always is mass extinction going on. That doesn't mean that the extinct didn't evolve in a different phase, in a different condition. It just means physically as we see it and perceive it. But when we're missing a whole mass of the EM spectrum, when there's tons of things we cannot physically see, how can we make determinations fully about what's next? Well, what do we see? And I surmise that we see a lot of expansion. I surmise that we see a lot of creation, and that often from what we call destruction, something anew comes from it. And so I have to come to the conclusion that the purpose of all existence is to procreate. Is to not necessarily create a better, but another. And I am coming more and more to the belief, and yes, to be fair, it's a belief, but it's a belief based on empirical evidence of what I see, that if there is a God, the intention of this God is to procreate other gods. In the construct of interconnectivity, those who say we're all one, we're all connected, the truth would be that this singular energy that runs through all things will always run through all of the other gods that even arise to sit next to what we'll call for the moment a core consciousness, an originator. The original, not the duplicates. And in that, it will always have a way to keep itself safe. It will always know what's going on through all of its parts in a energetic sense, in a magnetic sense, to put it that way. And think about a one-cell, single-cell organism that has no eyes. But single-cell organisms will detect each other. They detect each other within what we call the fluid around them because they feel a wave of movement come off one of the other organisms. In truth, it's a magnetic wave. It's an energy wave, and they're feeling whether it's friendly or foe. And they move away. This is proven. We see this. You can see this in a microscope. Blind single-cell organisms get together when they're similar and move away from things that they don't trust, while giving each other space until they decide to unify. They divide. They create another. You learn a lot when you look at the second dimension. The observations to me seem astounding and overwhelming in what is there. From the micro to the macro, from large to small, it is abundantly clear that procreation is the way of the universe, and our growth from a spark into a superfield, into what I will say is a godhood, seems clearly to be the goal and the intention of creation. We find just in that word, procreation, a universe that is for creation and not of destruction in the way that we are led to believe. We should embrace this advancement and the process that we appear to be stuck in. Thank you for your time. Please leave a comment and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.